The American Way. An Apocalyptic Fairy Tale. By Chucky H. Sanson. A Playtrait recording of the forthcoming novel. Level 2. Tickle slaves are us. Daddy Wardix and Bitch Sickle ruled from their throne at Our Lady of the Bleeding Thigh, king and queen of the tickle scene. They sprawled across a volcano-sized beanbag crusted with blood diamonds and petrified Cocoa Puffs, keeping tight watch over the giggle girls like hogs wallowing in fake joy. Kitten and the rest of the stable kept their customers in stitches in a central holding tank called the Laughing Stock, a former military-grade latrine repository. The reverse mommy and daddy lived off their tickle slaves in an ancient magical spell called capitalism. Slurping candied cloacas from glowing Boy Scout skulls, they took coin from each girl while they did nothing and lived like sultans of the apocalypse. The free market was an eldritch ritual that held that if you fucked people over, other people would pay you tribute. The worse you were, the better you were treated. Which meant if you're screwed now, just wait. It was indoctrinated, industrialized slavery with more steps. Daddy and Sickle ruled their one-room empire with velvet gloves and aluminum fangs. Leather leashes coiled around their wrists like serpents, each one tethered to a chuckle bitch programmed for pleasure or pain or both or neither. Uncle Sam or Uncle Tom, don't matter the color of the batter. Even if the skin is red, white, or blue, you screwed if you an Amerifucker, my dude. Daddy Wardix spat through gleaming teeth. You could smell the truth in his breath. The castle of his kingdom, the Bleeding Thigh, sat at the tailbone of the last highway, the final road on Earth, the American Way. The highway signs were burned to ash. No one knew where they were or where they were going. All directions led nowhere. Melted and groaning, it stretched out into the scorched nothingness. The road had no rules. No exits. Just the way Daddy Wardix liked it. It ain't the end of the world. He'd grin through his gleaming dentures, admiring his tiny dominion. But I swear you can see the motherfucker from here. From the hole in the wall, Kitten could see her personal slice of the outside. The blackened skeleton of Methkansas to the east, the blizzard-lit doom wall to the west. And between, the horizon sagged like a tired trampoline. Her job wasn't so bad, that's what she told herself. She tried to make it out that her life wasn't as sad as it seemed. She figured on her best days that if you ignored the violent tickle-johns, the finger-venereal plagues, the sporked abortions inside rusted dishwashers, you could almost forget you were alive. Kitten dreamed of leaving. But no girl had ever left the Bleeding Thigh. Not now. Not ever. Not with the gobbling Satanopids slithering just beyond the Budweiser thin walls. The gobbling Satanopids. They weren't just the kings of cultural boogeymen, they were the gay succubus of every red state wet nightmare. A tentacled fever dream from the deepest bunker of talk radio psychosis and whatever Roseanne Barr was. The Satanopids' battle cries checked off every square on John Q. Bushlover's End Times bingo card. Feed us, fetus, fajitas. Non-binary gun bans. Witchcraft abortions with pronoun cupcakes. All these and more were broadcast live during the Fox News Daily Baby Murder Report, sponsored by Flex Seal and the blood libel of the middle class. The Satanopids were the 2069 version of the Red Scare, the neo-cancel culture, the new scapegoat to keep the barns burning and the donations flowing. These invisible monsters were the kind of unpatriotic zombie sheeple your day-drunk uncle rage points a shotgun at through the Facebook screen. Devil-worshipping, preemie-eating gun-taker-awares. The AM radio final boss of every Michelob Ultra Dad's Lost Glory sob story. Daddy said it best. The Satanopids be straight-up, blue-haired, flag-burning, drag-reading, pronoun-huffing, gender-fluid reptiloid perverts from the Ninth Circle of Portland. And that shit's gotta be truth. I heard it straight out the Fox box. Every building left in Chimerica had a Fox box bolted to the wall like a parasite. It was part TV, part preacher, part jackbooted thug. It screamed and scolded day and night, vomiting slogans and salvation in the same breath. Families ate to it, slept to it, prayed to it. Turn it off, and the neighbors would report you for political heresy. Truth wasn't something you found anymore. It was something that found you. The Satanopids always came when you least expected them. Just before an election, when the president was in a sex scandal with a dead girl or a live boy, or when the economy was tanking over the refusal to look up the word tariff on dictionary.com. Their precise attacks were always at the most convenient times for some and the most inconvenient for others. They were strange that way. Almost predictable. When the liberal beasts came, they came hard. The demon pederasts rode in on rainbow-colored reverse Humvees powered by bake sales and aborted bald eagles. Their sound systems boomed, chanting unspeakable sorceries of universal health care, ending Christmas and defunding the police. No, they didn't come for sex. Or the lulz. They came for your kids and your guns. Your freedoms, too. Every last one. Even ones you didn't know you had, or deserve. To Daddy Wardix, the Satanopids were the ultimate existential threat. They were the holy panic, the sacred squirm, the all-American excuse for why the Giggle Girls couldn't leave. Most importantly, it was the real reason the Freedom Savages couldn't laugh anymore. The manufactured fear that left them in red, white, and blue chains. The unlawful Freedom Savages were the last vestiges of the fanatically religious middle class, the cursed garbage folk marooned across the heartland of the former United States of America. They were refugees from themselves, aliens in their own land, and their own worst enemy. In truth, the Freedom Savages were to blame for everything that had been done to this country and to themselves. They were the football jersey-wearing big toe that kicked the Limbaugh radio into the bathwater, electrocuting themselves into an eternal red state hate-gasm. Oh, they could cry snowflakes all goddamn day at the pettiest insult. Your president is a diaper-filling slumlord with his name on a list somewhere, would send them into a tactical freedom tizzy. The Freedom Savages couldn't even imagine cracking the hint of a smile. Laughter was all but dead, because somewhere out there, behind the gender-fluid fog machines and the anti-meat mandates, the Satanopids were coming. Hungry. Woke. Diverse. And totally not made up by rich people just to enrage you into easily manipulated action. Kitten feared the gobbling Satanopids more than anything else on Super Earth, even more than liberals, and they were all but extinct. In fact, the whole stable of bleeding thighs tingle sluts lived in constant fear of the terrible kid-munching creatures. Daddy Wardix always bragged that if it came down to platinum tax, he had a super-secret weapon to flush them away forever, but no one really believed it was true. And even though Kitten had never actually seen one of the shadowy libtard monsters with her own eyes, she totally knew they were real, because her pimp daddy and Madam Mommy told her they were. Her source was literally, "Trust me, ho." During the daily drowning baptisms, Daddy preached the evil of the Satanopids. Drowning baptisms were scripture waterboarding sessions where Kitten's head was held in a mop bucket while Bitchsicle recited from the sacred tome, surviving the totally fictional leftist fetus-eating ontocalypse for Bible Belt dummies. Why would someone eat someone else's preschooler for breakfast? Kitten wondered as they baptized the truth into her until her eyes dripped like candle wax. It seemed so unfair, at least for the little boy next to the scrambled eggs and toast. It was like getting hugged from the inside, she thought, as the dirty water filled her lungs with God's love. Kitten would choke and swallow their truth, sure, but eventually she got bored of drowning. So she would try to think of better things. Warm flags, cold beer, hottie Jesus with blue eyes, blonde hair, and an American boner. But her mind played traitor. Bad thoughts buzzed at the edges. Sad thoughts. Democratic thoughts. She knew the glass radio would fuzz them out if they got too close. At least she hoped it would. Later, Kitten curled in her rag nest, clothes still wet from learning how to believe. Pressing her face into the darkness, she whispered a bedtime prayer. Don't think of bad things, she told herself, and they won't come true. If you don't worry about the gobbling Satanopids, they won't come. And mostly they didn't. Kitten had never laid eyes on a Satanoped. Mostly because she'd never been outside. Not once. Not ever. Not since the first time a half-memory tugged from under the glass radio. She was on the chapel's porch, Bitchsicle's trembling fingers pulling Kitten's steaming form from a greasy Taco Bell bag. Since then, her whole world had been inside the walls of the laugh cult. Walls made from bleeding billboard ads from a forgotten past. Walls made from rules. Walls made from men. No matter how many freedom savages came looking for a quick giggle job, the church was her tightest chain and her only salvation. Daddy Wardix was the warden. Bitchsicle, his eternal watchdog, preached the gospel of fear. I've been outside, ladies. You don't want to go anywhere near the place. Let me tell you, there ain't nothing outside. Even though Democrats is extinct, the outside's still crawling with pinko commie lesbians, furry litterbox wrestling, and the occasional actual real-live Seattleite. She'd lean in close, eyes wide with state-sanctioned hysteria. Trust me, you don't want none of that. Stick to the chuckles, bitches. And remember, tickles make giggles, and giggles make you free. Kitten was stuck inside. There was no thought of ever leaving the bleeding thigh. She knew that. So instead, she dreamed of outside. It came to her like a song through the static, a half-hummed signal lodged between the molars of her soul. The very notion of it hummed up her steel spine like an antenna wired straight to God. When she'd sneak away and peek through the gap in the billboards, the outside looked like microwaved turbo hell. But that wasn't the real outside. Not the one in Kitten's head. The one in her head was much better. The beach party beer billboard told the truth. Outside was a paradise of busty women with clean feet, of radical Jesus doing kickflips over coolers of light beer, of endless flags flapping with meaning. According to the billboard, outside was salvation, smiles, and suntan lotion. In her dreams, the outside wasn't a boiling meatland of melting flesh and screeching biocrops. No, in her mind, it was better than that. It was exceptional. Her headcanon, outside smelled like cinnamon, Yankee candles, true love, and drive-through freedom. There were rows of white-fenced houses bathed in TV light. The skies above them a pearly blue that could only be seen through vintage Instagram filters. Daddies in tucked-in polos mowed their astro lawns while moms did yoga in Lululemon leggings, sipping pink cocktails with their 7 identical friends all named Susan. The laugh track told you when to feel. The commercials told you what to want. And the media? It was the massage. In this dream, Kitten would sit on the white steps of her imaginary porch, holding a newborn that smelled like vanilla dryer sheets and pumpkin spice candles. A man in a cowboy hat, tall, clean, and without scars, grilled something ethically sourced under a red, white, and blue sunset. A Kenny Loggins song played in the falsetto wind. The holy klaxon sounded. Kitten opened her eyes. Back to work. Again. Roomba whirred nearby, scooping laugh dust in the shape of a heart. Through the halls, the sirens wailed their nightly gospel. But somewhere in the static, she still dreamed. Outside was America. It had to be. Congratulations, you have reached the end of Level 2. Okay, everyone, thanks for kicking ass through the American way. Remember, this was just a taste. If you made it this far, you probably already know, this story isn't safe. It's not sanitized for platforms. It's too raw for Substack, too volatile for Royal Road, too true for Medium. But it's real. And it's only just begun.